So this farmer walks into the house carrying a chicken under his arm, and he says, "This is that pig I've been fucking I told you about." And his wife looks at him scornfully and says, "That's a chicken, you idiot. I wasn't talking to you."
See?
Hey, this is Jacques.
This is Joe, and no, Jacques is not calling from the Phantom Zone. He's calling. We're doing a weird thing now where we're international. It's Carnival Personnel, which is the podcast you're listening to, is now an international endeavor because Jacques is in. What part of the Middle East are you in right now?
Now we are in Qatar. When we tried to do this last week, I was in Abu Dhabi. We went from Abu Dhabi to Kuwait. Now we're in Qatar, and it's and just to backtrack that joke, I'm going to focus on Thanksgiving themed jokes, or for the month of November, or something that involves chickens and pigs. I guess I'm not. No.
Anything that's edible by non-use.
I should have said turkey. I should have said he walked in the house with a turkey and made it more Thanksgiving. I'll probably tell the same joke next week and forget. So
and so will our audience.
So, anyways, welcome to Carnival Personnel. It's been, we missed last week again, like between the time changes and technical crap and everything else. And sadly, it was probably one of the more under normal circumstances, I would have wanted to do nothing except talk the election, but we went totally dark. When our people needed us most, Joe, we let them down.
Well, we needed to give them time to register to vote and then to go out and vote and then to ignore us on who to vote for. There are a lot of factors in play. So it was more of a strategic thing than a technical thing. But so in case you're wondering, yeah, he's calling in via FaceTime. So those hisses and hums are going to, he sounds a little bit like Neil Armstrong calling from the moon through half of this podcast. But that's okay because I'm here, and I'll be the voice of clarity for once.
You normally are. You're the voice of reason. Now you're also the voice of clarity.
Good luck. So what's on your mind? So do you want to talk about, let's I guess, do you want to briefly run down why you're in the Middle East, or do you want to, well, I mean, we kind of already told them before you went away.
And we are, like Joe and I were talking, and Price is Right, our friend AJ, very much wants to come in and do, and there's no way it's not going to be a 2-part sideshow just because there is so much. But currently, we are producing a tour for Ice Cube's BIG3 Basketball through the 3 countries, 7 military bases, and it's going amazingly well. It started with a very long travel day from which turned out good because AJ and I had flight to New York. We had a 6-hour layover, and we ended up going to his friend's office, which was down at One World Trade Center Plaza. And it's the first time I've been to the Trade Center Plaza since, September 11th, And it was one of those things, I'm walking by and I see a bunch of people taking pictures and taking selfies with it and people in the background. And I'm like, I just don't think I want a picture with the Auschwitz behind me. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm like, I don't need to. And it was somber, it was sobering. I guess sobering was right. But then it was nice. We went up to the 60th floor and he had a buddy. AJ played 2 years at Penn State as a wide receiver, and his buddy, who was a running back on the team, worked there, and he toured us around. It was a really good way to spend a 6-hour layover in New York, and then we had a quaint 13-hour flight to Abu Dhabi.
Any babies crying on the flight?
Tons. Absolutely, but it literally doesn't bother me. I mean, it bothers some people when like a 6-year-old cries, but you can't get mad that a baby cries. It's because let's be honest, most adults backing coach with us were, for 13 hours. You can't not. I think it's the longest plane I've been on because I was in row 84, and like you go through the first class, you go through the curtain, and there's a coach class, and you see the curtain at the end of that, and you go through that, and then you see another section with a curtain behind that. And finally, when I got to my chair, I asked I don't know what the right term is. I don't know if it's flight attendant or steward or air waitress, but I said, "Am I on the same plane?" Did I just, I mean, I kind of felt like Fred Flintstone running, and the landscape.
Did they hand you a rudder?
Yeah, exactly. Uh, but honestly, I was like one row from the back, which for me was great because I was right next to the bathroom, so my old man bladder didn't have to, worry that long. But it was nice. I mean, I'm not going to talk about the whole flight, but it was fun. The trip is going well. We have done 5 bases so far. We had a day off in Kuwait, and our one day off didn't do anything because they had the first major rainstorm in a year and everything flooded, so we couldn't do things. And then we did 4 bases in 4 days, and we based from a hotel, and 3 of the bases were about an hour away, but one was 2 hours away, about 15 miles, or as you civilians or as the military people, we would say civilians, 15 miles, like about 22 clicks from the Iraq border. So from now on, if somebody says I'm in the middle of nowhere, I'll be like, no.
I'm in the middle of nowhere.
Nowhere. Like, honestly, and I sent you a video a couple years ago when we were dune buggying Qatar, and you can't see anything but sand dunes all over the place. I'm like, welcome to Ishtar. So it was nice to be back in Ishtar. It was. So we did 4 bases in 4 days. The reception is great. I mean, it's. I can't talk about it without talking in cliche, but every base is like, thank you guys so much for showing up. It means so much. And unlike a lot of tours where if it's comics or bands, which is great, and they appreciate that, these guys get to shoot around with these players. And what happened so far is we get there and we meet with the general or the colonel, who's ever the head of the base. And Joe, if you could, after this post, you can post some of the pictures I'm talking about on the Twitter. But we have a meeting with, and it's always that crazy long table with chairs, and like we're half on one side, half on the other, and we'll talk with the base people, question and answer period, and all of them have been funny, like hysterically laughing out loud funny. Not as funny as the bus rides. The bus rides are absolutely hysterical.
Those are the blue
6 guys
rooms.
who are, and sometimes, I mean, they're what's really nice is these 6 players are friends. So they've all played with each other and against each other. And even in the meetings, like how they bust on each other, because they've all played against each other either in college or the pros or, or in the Big 3. Some of them are teammates and they play against each other. So the trash talking, the shit talking, it's like, one guy went to USC, and every time somebody announces him, they're like, oh, University of South Carolina. It's just like, no, and it's like USC Trojans is so much more in sports well known, but it's always, and every time you can see them. The bus rides are absolutely hysterical. If I do this again, I'm going to invest in GoPro cameras and just put them up for the bus ride. Don't do anything about a show except just the bus rides, which would be hysterical. But then we get to the bases, and what happens is, we usually, it's awful. We usually eat right away. It's like, I thought I'm going on this 12-day tour with these pro athletes. Maybe I'll shed a few pounds. Every time I turn around, there's like, here's all the food you can possibly imagine, mister. You have no fucking willpower. So we eat a big buffet breakfast at the hotel before we leave, and then we get to the base, and it's like, hey, fatty, here's some more food because you've gone 2 hours without eating, and yet maybe you burned a calorie going up the bus steps. And then we go have the meeting. Then we go to the courts. And what happens is the bases have something like either an ongoing league or they have a tournament that day, a 3-on-3 tournament. So when we get there, it's for like the semifinals and the finals, and our guys coach. The last four teams in the semifinals or finals. Then they take a little break. Then we do a 3-point shooting competition. And it's just now and then you run across these guys on the base who are on a hot streak who might sink 21 out of 25 shots, going around the 5 spots where they shoot 5 baskets each from. And then the next round they'll shoot like 6, and there's sometimes like these guys will hit like 10, 11, 12 in a row and not just hit the shots. Like, you can't even hear the ball go through. It just doesn't even think about touching a rim. And it's like, you can kind of tell there was a basket because there's a little bit of a ripple in the net as it goes through, but it is really, really smooth. And then what ends up happening so far is our guys will either jump in on the 2 teams in the finals or or they'll play in the finals against these guys. And it's funny because what is amazing is one team won a base 2 days ago, and there were 6 guys on the team, and the guy who was captain of the team said, "Can we merge the 2 teams, the team that he just beat?" And I'm like, well, we haven't done that. He goes, yeah, but when are these guys ever going to get to play with NBA guys again? And the fact that he was willing to give up some of his court time to make it a group thing, I mean, it was a really nice gesture on his part. And we're like, dude, it's your call. So it was nice, and then now and then it gets a little close. And I'll post it. I'm definitely going to edit it. But if you get fouled inside like the 3-point arc, you shoot 1 free throw for 2 points. If you get fouled at the 3-point line, or outside the 3-point thing, you get 1 shot for 3 points. And in the big 3, you have a 4-point shot, which is damn near close to half court. I mean, it's about halfway from the 3-point arc to half court, where this is. And last night they were up by, they were up by pretty good. And I'm shooting it, I'm filming it. And the guy, Dez, like looks right in the camera and goes, because he got fouled by the 4-point thing. He goes, all right, you want to see me end it now? And it was like Larry Bird, 95 3-point. As soon as it left his hand, he turned and he started sprinting down to the other side of the gym because he knew it was, what I mean? He didn't look back, and it was just, it was really nice. And then at one base, the military guys were taking it a little too seriously because it was kind of close, and I think they thought, oh, if we step it up just a little, we can beat these guys. And again, the guy Dez looks at the scoreboard and goes, oh, all right. Oh, and he looks to the guys and goes, are we done? And they're like, yeah. Dunk, back, you know what I mean? 3-point shot. And all of a sudden it's like, all right. And so the next day, AJ and I usually talk to the teams and explain what's going on. And I told the team that was about to play, I'm like, it's up to you guys if you want them to come out of second gear or not. If you want to have fun and keep it close and them have a good time with you, great. But if you want to start, diving into the stands for loose balls and boxing out and stuff like that, and the switch goes on, it's don't cry to me. But the guys are great. And then it's meet and greets and it's shaking hands. And I'm not a big basketball guy, as you know, mostly because I'm a racist. But what is interesting is college basketball isn't on my radar at all. It's not on the radar at all. And even though these guys, like, one guy played for like the Lakers for like 9 years, we've had more people talking to him about his college career. I mean, these guys, and I'm serious, like college basketball, if you're a college basketball fan, the NBA almost doesn't exist. And there's nowhere we've gone where he's like, oh, he played at North Carolina. he played at Michigan, and oh, he played him in this Final Four, or this, and it's just like I was talking about the Red Sox in 2004, or 86 or something like that. They know their college careers almost better than their pro career. So it's really interesting, but it's one of those things where they're so appreciative we're there, and the guys have got to do cool things. I'll have you post some, or we'll post some stuff. I think I just have video that I haven't edited yet. They took us to a firing range, but it's air guns, and it's the real thing. It have the kick and everything. And one of the guys is a huge gamer, and he's like, "Dude, I can never fucking play Doom again." Like, because you're in an immersed setting with a real machine gun and you're laying there shooting it, and it's a simulated thing. And dude, it is crazy. And the guys, they were explaining it cost 25 cents, 25 cents per bullet. And they're like, yeah, that's not bad. And it's like, or was it? I'm trying to think of the math, but it's like, yeah, one of these clips, was like, $15, and no big deal. Now there's 10 of you taking these shots. Now, each one of you have gone through 4 clips times, each soldier on the base being required to do this training and fire, 500 shots twice a week, type thing and stuff. And so and it is. I don't know the history of it, so I won't pretend, but they brought in the best video game developers, the most accurate. It's amazing, and like you said, I'll post it. But that's the kind of stuff. It's like the troops are so excited that you're there, and they want to show you the cool stuff that they do, and they want to talk to you about what they do and stuff. So it works both ways, where the guys are so excited, and by the guys I mean me and AJ. But it's true. It's been really great, and I've not uttered a word about politics.
Imagine if I asked Jacques, tell us a lot about your trip to the Middle East.
All right.
Well, that was been a whole hour. Did you not know that 60 minutes had elapsed since you started talking until now?
Okay, so we'll get to the election, which honestly, because of the time change, and I don't have Wi-Fi 70% of the day, like on the bus trips. And then if you're on parts of the base, if you're in like the mess hall or the dining area, and believe me, there's a big difference between mess halls and dining areas. I'll have Wi-Fi, and then I'm getting back at the hotel, and I'm really bummed that I wasn't following everything like I normally do 24/7. On the other hand, it was kind of almost freeing to not have constant information and about nothing I could do about it. I can't.
And you didn't really miss anything, because all you had to do was just wait a couple of hours or whatever, and you get caught up.
And that's what it was. So but when we got back to the hotels at night, we're getting back at, we're leaving. It's about a 12+ hour day there and back, and it's moving. And then by the time you get back, you're exhausted. It's like, I'm going to stay up and listen to, the radio. I'm going to, have the TV on in the background and just coma, just out, just out. So, but it was pins and needles. And I don't think there was any huge surprises. Do you think there was any huge surprises?
Yes. One was that the Democrats took over the House. And I know that people were predicting a blue wave and all of this. And and there were a lot of people who were, trying to downplay the influence that the Democrats had on this election by saying, oh, it wasn't a blue wave, it was more of a blue ripple. But, there is some truth that it wasn't exactly a wave. Like the Democrats didn't take over the entire Congress, but the amount of flips, especially in Pennsylvania, apparently they had redistricted Pennsylvania this election, and it really favored the Democrats, so much so that there were a lot of flips or switches or whatever that you wanted to call them from typically Republican districts two now Democratic represented districts. That's one surprise, is that the House actually was, and at least in my opinion, that the Democrats did take over the House. And another thing was the amount of women that were elected. I mean, there was over 100 women are now going to be either a congressperson or, a representative or a senator in the United States Congress, which is, I think a first.
Well, what's interesting is, it wasn't the Kavanaugh thing. There was a record number of women who took out things. I mean, what happened day 2 of this administration? It was the women's marches.
Yeah.
And so this was the tsunami of women running. And what's wonderful is how many diverse people won. I love the fact that, like, I think I saw, like, either on your Twitter or on management's Facebook, hey, if you're having a shitty day, just think about the fact that Mike Pence is going to have to hold a Quran while swearing in 2 Muslim women to the House.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, you know what? That does make me smile, knowing that he's going to have to hold the Quran in his hand and swear 2 women in. I did. I thought it did bring a smile. No, it was and again, everything's about the Patriots. It's like, the Patriots are going to win this game, but they have to hype like the backup punter for the other team just to keep you interested. Well, we knew they were going to take the House, but they started saying, well, maybe this will happen and maybe they won't, and they probably will, but you might not have a big majority. The thing is, the Senate might be in play, and I don't think anybody really, really thought it was going to be, but you had such great energy with, like, Beto O'Rourke and stuff like that. So, it's not. It is disappointing he didn't win, but it's expected. But it was really close. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if it's really close,
Right, and I saw a graphic online, and you might have seen this, where they compared the number of senators that were Republican versus the number of senators that were Democratic, and it was like, 51 senators to 40-something, Democratic senators.
46.
46, right. And then you looked at the number of votes nationwide between the two. And, for the 50-something senators that are Republican, they represent 10 million less or fewer people than the Democratic senators, which is, like, ridiculous.
Well, you think of somebody like Pamela Harris, okay? She represents, just like the city of Los Angeles. Honestly, the city of Los Angeles is more densely populated than, like, 7 red states combined. The city of Los Angeles alone is more populous than Montana, Wyoming, Idaho, North Dakota, South Dakota,
Maryland, Monroe.
And there's, but seriously, no.
I'm dumb. Continue. You were talking about politics or something?
No, but when you think about that, so you got 6 senators, in the Senate, 6 senators that represent less people than Los Angeles, but they control it, and that's a hard thing to overcome. So yeah, it's just like it's one thing where, again, you're supposed to represent your constituents, and where it's so partisan, this administration, you think about it, Hillary had 49%, he had 49%. 50% didn't vote. So you're talking like, and he only cares about his base. So best case scenario, you're talking this administration represents 25% of the country. And it is. It's disheartening. It's one of the things that you keep having to fight over and over. Hillary won the popular vote by 3 million. The Democrats won the popular vote for Senate by 10 million people. But yet they're the majority. And with the awful news of, the notorious, RBG, being on IR, it's like you can't possibly imagine anybody less qualified than Brett Kavanaugh getting onto the Supreme Court. Hold my beer.
Yeah, I know exactly.
Like,
right. It can only go downhill. But I mean, the thing that hit me the hardest about the Beto O'Rourke loss was that it is essentially 6 more years of Ted Cruz as a senator, unless he becomes president or something, which obviously won't happen. But it's not.
Put you in the.
It is. Oh, good. I was hoping we wouldn't get through a podcast without somebody either chewing or swallowing or easing the pain.
Oh.
So yeah, we're talking about how many senators represent so few people among the red states, and then of course now you have former Attorney General Jeff Sessions representing the Lollipop Guild now. So there's like a lot of representation and misrepresentation. But what are your thoughts on Jeff Sessions being asked to resign as Attorney General, and then of course this Mark Whitaker, who is now surpassed Rod Rosenstein as Attorney General, to basically lay the groundwork to dismantle the Mueller investigation? Go.
Well, first of all, if I may ask, because I haven't had the heart to dive into the numbers, how close was O'Rourke?
Beto O'Rourke, I think, it was like a couple of percentage points. It was, and that wasn't uncommon in any of the election results. I mean, almost every single result. I mean, we watched it from 8 o'clock until about 1 a.m. All of them were essentially 48 to 49, or that sort of 50% to 48. So it is so steeply divided. And then I mean. You had like elections like, well, let's talk about Massachusetts, for example. Senator Warren won 2-1. I mean, it was like 67% to 30-something percent.
Wait, hold on, because what I thought was interesting, this is one thing I did look up. She won convincingly, and we were a little worried because she wasn't really campaigning like we had hoped. But Charlie Baker won by a larger percentage. But not by a lot, but I think she won 60% of the vote, and then there was a third party who took like 4% of the vote. So she won by 35 points over her closest rival. But I think Baker was even more substantial.
I think Baker was 70-30, and that's not unsurprising. I mean, Baker, like we've talked about, is not a terrible Massachusetts governor. As far as Republican governors go, he is a socially moderate governor. He's not destroying the state. There is an influx of businesses coming into Massachusetts, so the economy is on the uptick. You cannot turn down the street without some sort of construction going on in any city in this
That's
state.
True.
So it's not like he's Nero and Rome's burning. So. Of course, yeah, and Jay Gonzalez, nice enough guy, I guess, but not exactly a powerhouse that's going to unseat a pretty popular governor. Hey,
can we go back in the archives? Our senior Republican Senate correspondent, whose campaign kickoff did he go to? Was that who wound up on the ticket?
Yeah, he went to Jeff Deal. Yeah, he went to the Jeff Deal. He was a Jeff Deal supporter until recently. We're talking about our friend Jim, of course. I spoke to Jim not too long before the election, and he was not he wasn't feeling it about Deal going into the Senate election in Massachusetts. He kind of owned up to the fact that, yeah, Deal is kind of a nutty person. Like, he's like, as far as, in the slew of nutty Trump supporting politicians, Deal is up there with one of the nuttiest. And he didn't come off well in the debate. And he wasn't quite feeling it. I think, as Jim put it, he's kind of a clown. And that's interesting coming from, somebody who, I think he's spoken to Jeff Deal personally at a couple of those conventions, and an email and like on texts and stuff, not texting him directly, but with the campaign. So he was pretty invested in that up to maybe just recently, but I'm sure he didn't exactly, switch parties at the last minute and say, you know what, I'm going to vote Warren just because I'm not getting a good enough vibe. I want to send a message to.
Right.
Yeah, he wasn't trying to send a message to Jeff Deal and Trump by voting the other way. So I'm pretty sure he voted party line, as did I. I mean, I'm a Democratic C word. I went right down the line. D. I love the D.
Just like your report card.
No, you're talking about your brain with the card.
Got that? It's for a later podcast because I've already talked too much about, everything. But it is interesting. I've wondered why the military was so anti certain things and this and that. And I got some great stories about conversations I've had with some people in the military that I was like, whoa, but I did hear some perspective on a couple things. I'm like, okay, I can see why people didn't like X, Y, Z. That said, yeah, I'm glad that that the House. If I had to choose between the House and Senate, it's tough to say because the Congress actually passes the rules, but it's the Senate that appoints people to the Supreme Court. So
yep.
It's tough. It's really tough. And so to answer your question,
did I ask one?
About Mueller and about Jeff Sessions? So you can't fire me, I quit Jeff Sessions type thing. And of course, the guy that they put in his place is a talking head from not David Byrne, but he's a Fox News guy who very, very, very openly doesn't think the Mueller investigation is too broad, doesn't think there's any collusion. Sure, can you get that back a little closer to the microphone? I can't think it. And he's put the kisses.
I'm really close to the wildfires in California.
Why do you have to be such a tool every time? Because you're funny. But no, it's one of those things where they put in somebody who's been making the rounds for the last year, lobbying for this job by saying flat out, yes, there was meddling by Russia, but there's no collusion, and there's this. And I mean, he is 100% definitely going to try to do something about Mueller. Here's the thing, Joe. Yeah, let's say he fires Mueller tomorrow. Well, you know what? In 6 weeks or 8 weeks, when the new House is sworn in, they can really now we will get a real Russian investigation between Benghazi. Oh, I'm sorry, Benghazi.
Thank you.
And the emails. What about her? Yes, but what about her emails?
But her emails.
There were 14 subpoenas by the House that were served. In the last 2 years, one. And even though it's like, who are you going to believe, me or your own lying eyes? And yet the House keeps shutting down the investigation and keeps stonewalling things, or there'll be a 20-page memo where there might be one line that says 99.9% sure this is the way it is. They spin it as there's a percentage that it might not have happened. You know what I mean? And they've redacted things. So even if Mueller gets fired, at the end of the day, he could be, back at his desk in 6 weeks. So, and at the end of the day, the House, because you remember the not Mueller, but I think it was 14 heads of different branches of intelligence said it would be really bad if you released this memo, but it for 1/10 of a news cycle made the Republicans look good. So they said, fuck you, national security. We're going to release this to get whatever Stormy Daniels' awful thing off the news for 20 minutes. Well, now, turnaround is fair play. And I think you agree with me. Correct me if I'm wrong. I just hope the Democrats don't become the pussies they usually are, and instead of saying, well, now the pendulum's going to swing the other way, well, we have to do what's right or we want to be fair. No, let the pendulum swing back. You know, fight hard. The Senate can now, the House can now subpoena, for Blotus's tax reforms. The House can now subpoena Eric Trump. The House can now subpoena. You go down the list of all the people that they can call in front of him. So even if you throw Mueller out, the information doesn't go away. It's not like they shred the files in Men in Black mind wipe, who worked on the investigation. And you tell me, I'm over here, Joe. So I haven't really, like I said, been following it. Is Benedict Donald being more himself than normal? Is there a panic? I mean, is it a coincidence that, people thought that Jeff Sessions would be fired after the midterms, but did they think it was going to be the next day? I mean, what is the reaction from over there?
They're saying that it's a panic, that this is a panic move, that he's basically is laying the groundwork to dismantle the Mueller investigation, to fire Mueller. I'm sure that's the end game. Although CNN reported yesterday, and I don't know if this report is still valid, that a source had told CNN that the Mueller team is starting to finalize their report.
Because, I mean, Mueller has been 6 steps ahead of everybody. There's not been leaks. There's not been rumors. How many times did somebody get indicted and every talking head on both sides of the aisle, like, where did this name come from? Like, who is this person? It wasn't like, oh, okay, they got Cohen, they got Manafort. Well, now they had this woman that the Russian who was living in North Dakota. You know what I mean? It's like, who the hell is she? She was on nobody's radar until she was, not only indicted, but they wouldn't give her. She couldn't be released, and all. But that's the thing. So he's been so far ahead. If he's going to get fired, the MPs aren't going to show up at his office and drag him out without his files and all this stuff. And then as soon as go ahead.
I was going to say, you were to kind of elaborate more on, like, if Trump has been acting more panicky lately. Have you heard about the revoking of Jim Acosta's White House press credentials?
Yeah. I honestly, I saw a blur, but and didn't the rest of the press corps kind of come to his defense and say, you can't do that?
I don't know how much of the press corps came to his defense. I'm sure a lot of the major a lot of the major news agencies came to his defense. I'm not sure about Fox News, although. So what had happened was Jim Acosta was asking some pretty pointed questions to Donald Trump, and Trump wasn't having it. So a female aide, was trying to take the mic physically from Jim Acosta's hand, a wireless mic, and he was, still trying to hold on to it. And one thing led to another. Eventually, he just sort of finished his questioning, but then later on, there was some sort of like right-wing blogger kind of guy had edited the video so that it looked as though his hand, Jim Acosta's hand, was kind of karate chopping the female White House aide's hand as she was going for the microphone. The fact of the matter is, no, his arm went down at the same time her arm went down in sort of like a small little, no, I'm not giving up my microphone motion. But it had been doctored to speed up at that moment to make it look as though Jim Acosta had accosted the White House aide. And this video had been doctored and then picked up by Secretary Huckleberry Sanders, who then released it as a press release, saying, look, this is why we are revoking Jim Acosta's White House credentials, because he had tried to take a swipe at a White House aide. And it's like literally fake news is being distributed by the White House as a justification of this. And it's, some people are calling it Orwellian. Some people would be smart people.
Because I'll be honest, I've walked in. We got to this one base. I walked in, and it was really great to look up and see the last 5 minutes of the Bruins Dallas Star game and see a bunch of guys watching it. And then I watched the overtime and Marchand scored the goal. That was awesome. But then on 3 other TVs, it was Fox News. And I'm like, this is just poison.
Yeah, I want to actually, real quick, let's talk about, I don't know how much you can say, but what is the overall kind of mood over there on a military base? Is it like you were just saying, all the other 3 channels were on Fox News? Is there literally no other news organization allowed to disseminate news into a military base?
It's funny. So just tonight, I saw Fox News. It's 50 to 70% of the TVs everywhere I look are on sports. And it's NBA, it's NFL, it's NHL, it's cricket, it's soccer, because football, or, their football, because a lot of these bases are coalition bases, you know what I mean? And you'll see people in different uniforms. But I haven't seen an MSNBC on. I've seen like a CNN and CNN International. But no, I mean, if there's a predominant news force, and I'll bring home like every base we go into, every mess hall, there's a stack of this week's or this day's, I don't know if it's daily or weekly, Stars and Stripes. And I picked one up and I was reading one, and it wasn't full on Fox News, but I will tell you this, we don't see a ton of people, because we're doing these events, and when we're in the room, it's about the players and it's about this. There's been no politics talk, you know what I mean? And I haven't seen people express things one way or another. So it's not like I get a really good sense. I mean, I've had a couple conversations with people that have been interesting and pretty good. And like I said, one person pointed out some stuff that they didn't like how the previous administration handled China taking over certain islands, and this is why. And they gave me some real background that I looked at. I'm like, yeah, that kind of went under the radar, but that's kind of important, and I can see somebody having been bothered by that. But no, I mean, and literally even on the day after the election, it was one of those things going to the base. I'm like, don't bring it out. Don't talk to anybody. Don't talk to AJ about it. Just kind of keep focused and do this. I'm not here to. But it was kind of weird because on one course, it was an Air Force base, and in the middle of like a shoot around, I'm video one of the guys, and you can hear to my right. It was an outdoor court with a giant tarp over it. It was really nice. And you could see like 7 planes taking off in formation. And it's just the roar. It was like a flyover. You know what I mean? It was a really cool thing. And you're right there and you can feel it. And a young girl, early 20s, she's like, you know what that is? I'm like, no. And I thought she was going to say, it's this brigade, it's this. And she's like, that's the sound of freedom.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, so, and I'm looking around and thinking, where do I get the Kool-Aid that I'm supposed to be drinking here? And then it's like, honestly, they circle back and they fly, and she's like, you want to know where they're going? I'm like, sure. You know what I mean? I'm already in the car. Let's see where it's headed. She goes, they're going to kick some ISIS ass. And I'm thinking, and this is maybe an hour after I hear about Thousand Oaks. And by the way, that place in Thousand Oaks, remember the place that we did stand up where, again, getting back to Jim, he did nothing except boy band poses?
Yes.
And who had the best reaction? Not between the 3 of us. That night, 10 stand-up people up there doing stand-up. Who had the best brought down the house reaction?
Oh, absolutely, Jim.
And again, what was his routine?
Hey, I'm Jim, and I'm just going to be posing, and I'm just going to be doing a couple poses, and here we go. And then he posed. And then, of course, I went up there with my hack material with my fly down. Or was that a different venue? I can't remember.
Well,
and I got booed off the stage.
No, you didn't.
Oh, in my mind.
Well, that's true. But that guy's a jerk. but but literally that club that we did, that restaurant, club, is about 2 miles from where that restaurant was. So
You're talking about the mass shooting, by the way, Thousand Oaks. In case you weren't paying attention to the news in the past couple of days, there was a mass shooting that killed 13 people. And of course, it was done by another Muslim.
Wait. ISIS.
ISIS? Yeah. You're right. Right on the money.
Okay.
Damn ISIS. You know what? Actually, it was an ISIS via the caravan that nobody talks about anymore.
Oh, the caravan got up there. I'm not even going to joke about it, but I will say, so here this girl is telling me that's the sound of freedom and they're going to kick ISIS ass. And I'm thinking, and I didn't say it to her, but I'm like, oh, they're flying all the way to Thousand Oaks and getting that 28-year-old white guy. You know what I mean? It's like.
So let me just ask you one thing. If you were to walk down the base right now in broad daylight and just said, America, how many responses would be, fuck yeah?
A good 2/3.
Okay, good. Just want to make sure. All right, so that's depressing.
Here's something interesting I will say. The diversity of the troops is pretty interesting. It's pretty good. I am truly surprised at the number of females. And I don't know if it's because we're just on Army bases and Air Force bases. So I don't know if there's a higher percentage of females in the Air Force than, say, the Marines or the Navy. I don't know. But it is a pretty... and one of the base commanders that we had, in that, female, and one of the other things, and I'm kind of getting a little off topic, it's really kind of, I'm meeting a lot of people over here who were weekend warriors who literally joined the ROTC or joined the National Guard for tuition, or honestly join the National Guard because, let's say, there's a Hurricane Sandy in my state, and I can be there to help. Or if there's a flood, or if there's a Katrina, the last thing they expected is to be deployed for and some of the people we talk to, they usually 9-month deployments, and there's some guys who've been deployed 2 or 3 times. They honestly thought 2 weeks in the summer, 1 week in a month, I'm doing my part, and now they're here.
Yeah, well, they're not letting them go. I mean, that's what you get with the volunteer army. Wait.
Right, exactly. So, anyways, but yeah, it's and I will honestly say, the people watching the Fox News or the people you would think would be watching the Fox News, we saw a great graphic about ISIS then and now in the region. We got a pretty. It was an unclassified, but it was pretty in-depth history of the region the last few years, and it's and it's interesting because they're gone, but it is the whole whack-a-mole thing. But the territory they hold has shrunk. You know what I mean? Let's say ISIS is 75% of what it used to be. It only has 10% of the land it used to be, and its population is down. But they're still here, and it's bad. But again, I'm not. When the girl was saying that to me, I'm like, all right, settle down. The weirdest thing, Joe, is being called sir all the time. It's all the time, and not an age thing. You know what I mean? It's a respect thing and stuff. And I'm like, it's just. Don't. Look, we didn't know we were getting these certificates. And most of the time, like at some of the other bases, just the players get these accommodations and these medals and these pins, which is really nice. It's about them. It's not about, the 4 of us in support in the background. But at this one base, it was, they gave it to all the players, called them up one at a time. And then the next name was AJ. And they didn't say AJ. They used his name. And he's just standing there because he's not used to hearing his name like I'm not. And our friend Latasha's like, AJ, that's you. It's like, oh. And so they called me, and there I am wearing a Hello Kitty Gronkowski shirt, holding Nightwing, having a colonel. And it's funny because when I took the picture, I was so stunned, I was blocking the Hello Kitty. The Hello Kitty wearing a Gronk shirt, and somebody pointed that out, and then the colonel said, "Oh yeah, we got to get that in there." and I lowered the thing, and he pointed, and literally the thing is, he think it's great that I have long hair and that these guys are, the way they are and stuff like that.
Hold on, time out.
Because
I'm gonna interrupt you because you're either touching your
nothing.
something. Yeah, just
That's
it's because it sounded like very swimmy. Sorry.
Yeah, all of a sudden I thought maybe you were, crushing styrofoam between your thighs.
I do that on every podcast. I'm surprised you're picking that up just now.
But yeah, I mean, it's really funny. I was not expecting that, but no, nobody's talked politics. Nobody's, I mean,
any religion talk.
Yes. And what was really interesting is your friend AJ the other morning, because there was a big storm, like I said, a huge storm in Kuwait, and a few people couldn't sleep. And AJ said how nice it was to hear the morning call to prayer. And it is. It's very much like I remember, being in Everett when I would visit my aunts and uncles, where my grandparents lived, maybe within a mile in any direction, there was like 4 or 5 big churches. And church bells have a calming kind of cathartic, nice, kind of backdrop to it. And it's the same thing. And AJ was really excited about having been immersed in it, like a true, it's not like we went to a mosque or we went to see a sightseeing historical Muslim thing. It's just to be immersed in the culture and just hear it wherever you are. And that was the extent of it. You know what I mean? And he, he called his mom and he was like, "Oh my God, this is so cool." It's like, to be up at 4:30 in the morning at sunrise and hear, the call to prayer. So it was, so that's about it. But no, there's no religion talk. There's no politic talk. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who wins or loses back there. These people's job does not change.
Yep.
The service people, you might have joined because you were, you wanted to fight ISIS, or you were a real supporter of the former president, or you joined because you're a real supporter of this president. I hurt to say that, but your mission is the same, whatever it is, without question. And it's one of the many reasons neither you or I joined that, and we're pussies.
Yeah. So there's going to be no defunct sponsor. If you haven't already guessed, it's already at the past the 50-minute mark. We're not going to have a defunct sponsor this week. I don't know if you wanted to have anything else that you wanted to add before we get into maybe the last 10, 15 minutes of the usual rigmarole.
Listen, no. I mean, I'll just end it by I wish the blue wave was a tsunami, but you can only do so much with, again, the election fraud that's still going on. The woman, I apologize for blanking on
Stacey Abrams and Rick Scott. I mean, not Rick Scott, no. Brian Kemp.
Did you hear her non-concession speech?
No, I didn't. I don't think I heard the speech. Yeah,
powerful. It really was powerful, and I mean that. It was moving. It was powerful. And the fact, again, that vote was so close, and we're not going down this rabbit hole, but the fact that the guy who oversaw the election has already, before the election, been told by the Supreme Court he can't throw those 70,000 names out, and there's widespread reporting the day of that so many precincts just magically ran out of ballots and stuff like that. I don't know if she will get a recount.
That they found voting machines wrapped in warehouses.
Yeah, I mean, literally, you openly threw 70,000 people off. You openly didn't send enough ballots, and then there's all that voter intimidation. So I don't know. So I think, I'm still optimistic. I mean, it is a little depressing and disheartening that the blue wave was not a tsunami, but it is a step in the right direction. And truly, if you believe in the force and karma and saying prayers, we cannot lose the notorious RBG. We can't.
I know, and it's. I mean, she's an old person. I mean, let's be honest. She's an old, frail. I mean, she's strong, but not she's still an old person. So, she probably only has a couple of good years. It's very likely that she will not make it through this administration, let alone this presidential cycle, let alone the next one. And we just have to.
With that happiness, yeah, enough.
Okay.
Let's move on to some good. But by the way, I don't know why my iPhone the other day ended up playing an old like episode 9 of us. You used to start the show with a commercial. It started with I guess it's before the awful joke came in, with an OJ commercial. It was a Hertz one.
Oh, those were the days. Yeah, that was weird. That happened on my iPhone too. It just downloaded and added as like new episodes on my iPhone, like everything from like episode, now until like episode 9. So I had to like delete it. I don't know. It was weird. Who knows if people are still getting our episodes anymore? I think we're just talking to ourselves at this point. But in any case, so what do you want to do? Do you want to do a video game review? Do you want to do what are you watching on Netflix this week, Jacques?
I'll tell you, and you'll understand it. Maybe a couple other people will understand it. I did not want to watch The Orville. I did not want that. That's not me. That whatever noise that is, no.
Okay.
I did not want to watch The Orville. I had sold a show, or I was told I was selling a show to Fox that was a Star Trek comedy, like a sitcom version of Star Trek, and then I had it stolen away, and somebody else took it to NBC. It went to pilot, and then because of the lawsuit, NBC dropped it. So even though, I'm friends with, I've been to Seth MacFarlane's house a number of times, and I'm friends with Scott from the show, I couldn't watch it. And so then I end up watching it on the plane. So this is what am I watching? I watched the pilot for The Orville, and much to my surprise, do you know what Grimes' character's name is?
I forget.
Gordon.
Oh.
And the female lead, it's Seth MacFarlane's number one, then the female lead, and then Scott's like third in the cast.
It's his ex-wife.
Whose name is Grayson.
Huh.
Interesting.
You know what? I've watched several episodes of The Orville in the first season, and I did not pick that up.
Yeah. Maybe I'm a little more force sensitive than you are. Maybe my medical audience is a little higher. But my pick of the week, and I apologize for not knowing the name. On the flight, I watched a documentary about a Muslim girl in Abu Dhabi who lives to play hockey. And her favorite team is the Washington Capitals, or as we like to call them,
the Crapitals. Thank
you. And an NHL Hall of Famer, longtime Crapital, was out at a tournament in Abu Dhabi. And this girl's 15, 16, and she wasn't playing in the tournament. It was a men's tournament. But just in her sandals, she was standing on the ice afterwards talking to one of her friends, and she was doing this puck trick where she scoops a puck up and bounces it. And Peter Bondra sees it, takes a quick, asks if he can videotapes it, and then talks to her for like 10 minutes and talks to her about the Capitals and all this stuff. And then the video goes viral. And a couple weeks later, she's on a talk show in Abu Dhabi, an English-speaking talk show. And, it's more of a web show. And they Skype in Peter Bondra, who, talks about the video and how impressed. And I'm in the Hall of Fame, and it's a trick that I can't do. And you know what I mean? And it's really neat. And then two people come out with, the oversized, plane tickets. They're sending her to go to a Capitals game because she loves Ovechkin. And so they fly her and her brother, out to Washington. She goes to a game. and it's like it's tear jerking. She couldn't be more excited. Then she goes in the locker room afterwards and meets them, and then here's Ovechkin's like, "We got practice at 11 tomorrow morning if you want to come." And she didn't know it, and she goes out and she literally did the practice with him. Yeah, like Joe's eyes just lit up. Joe, it's really great. And then they go to the Abu Dhabi. Um, oh, and I was going to say the ambassador, the
embassy,
consul,
consulate,
embassy. Thank you.
Whatever.
And yeah, Peter Bondurant was there, and there was some NHL reps, and they're like, "Yeah, we want to bring your whole team over and do a goodwill thing, and and we'd like you to do some speaking to young girls here, and we would like to then later send our team out there." So it's PR, it's press, it's all, but I mean, it all started so organically. This girl who loves hockey, by coincidence, by a chance meeting with this guy, and the video goes viral. And then there was a lot of people who, and I don't care if it's for the good press or whatever. I mean, it was so wonderful to see, like, a genuine, like, gesture and stuff like that. It's a really good documentary. I'm quite sure if you Google, like, Abu Dhabi female hockey player, don't think you're going to get a lot of hits.
Actually, that's ironically the first result that I get on Pornhub all the time is.
So if I have a pick of the week, it would be that.
Oh, well, that's fantastic. By the way, did you have a character named Finn in any of your scripts? No. Okay, I just want to make sure.
Wait. So I will have to go back, because our version of what our show was, and this is how long ago it was. This it was just before the Big Bang Theory. Let's say the guys from the Big Bang Theory lived in the Midwest and they made their own Star Trek movies, but we couldn't call it Star Trek, so we called it Star Jumpers, and it was kind of based on Star Trek meets The Untouchables. So it was a small 4-person crew, and the captain was Patrick Warburton. Like, he was signed to do it. We met with them. He was the Captain Kirk character, and I can't remember. We had an alien. And I don't mean one of those monsters coming in the caravan to wash our toilets, raise our children, and mow our lawns. And I will look to see if that was Finn. But anyways.
Well, that's a character.
So what is your pick?
That was a character on Orville. What is my pick of the week? Besides my ass, I'm going to say, I don't think I've been watching a lot of Netflix. Yeah, I don't know. I've just been sort of working, missing you. I'm on my third verse of my, love song for you that I'm going to debut in the next podcast. I have not, I don't know. I can't really pinpoint anything that I could recommend to watch on television. So I'm at a loss. Maybe I've been watching too many classic concentration reruns on Buzzer. I do DVR them, so, I got to get them off there, or otherwise, you use them or lose them, as I like to say. So I don't know. Do you want to do a wrap up, or do you want to do a video game thing, or do you want to, Yeah,
you do. I mean, do you want to do a review, or what are you playing while you're watching Concentration? Do you concentrate while watching Concentration? Because
I do. I solve the rebuses. I get into the high drama of seeing if they can make a match, and then how fast they can make a match. And it's Alex Trebek who hosted Classic Concentration late 80s, and was it called
Classic Concentration, or was it called Concentration? And just now, because it's so old, we call it, like, they didn't call it World War One until it was World War II.
Well, if you hadn't been paying attention to history, that's probably why you wouldn't know that Concentration actually debuted in the 60s, and this was the revamp, kind of like Jeopardy, when Jeopardy was, brought back in the 80s, but it originated in like the 70s or late 60s. This is the same thing. So they called it Classic Concentration, but it was actually, an NBC show back in the 60s. Anyway, so I like watching these episodes because it's the first time they've been on television since the 80s. So that's cool for me. And interesting thing about Alex Trebek. So he had been married in the 70s, and then he'd been divorced, I think early 80s. And he didn't remarry until maybe the 90s. So this these were his like late 40s single years, and it's funny to see a very flirty Alex Trebek. It's just, yeah, it's he has to have a personality. He's not the Will Ferrell, impersonation that you come to know and love on Jeopardy.
It's like going back in time and finding out your mom smoked and drank and, tried to put the moves on dudes.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. Like you can't, you think a game show host, and then, but so I guess,
Time's up.
So I guess that's what I've been wasting my time with. And, maybe I'm looking a little too introspectively into my, how I'm spending my free time. I don't know. It's odd. So I don't want to get it. I haven't been really playing anything of substance, video game wise. So sorry to disappoint you yet again. I don't have really anything to add to this conversation.
All right. Well, we will very, 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 sports very quickly. It was nice to see Alex Cora take the world championship trophy down to Puerto Rico. Did you catch any of that?
Briefly, but yeah, that was nice.
I mean, a true VJ Day hero's welcome. Which was nice, which was really, really nice. The Patriots, it was nice because I stayed up because their game 2 weeks ago was against the Packers, and it was a Sunday night game, which meant I started watching it at 4:30 in the morning. But it was nice to see the duck boats come out with the Red Sox and the trophy and all that stuff. So that was nice. The Patriots are now in their bye week, having beaten the Mike Vrabel Tennessee Titans, led on defense by the once heroed, always a hero in our hearts, Malcolm Butler. So now they're 7-2. You might have to be doing some editing in a couple days, or not to embarrass me. That's it. I don't have. Oh, are we about ready to wrap up? Are we ready?
Yeah, we're about ready. Yeah, I think this is the final minutes.
So the other day,
I had a thought.
We're driving back. I had a thought. What if? But one of the guys on the bus was just having a moment, talking about his kid and some, like, he was FaceTiming him and he was giving his baby mama's, I don't know the right term, a hard time about homework, and yet he's playing the games and this and that, and just. He's not a pro basketball player. He's not this guy touring the world he's a dad, and it was really nice to just have these conversations. And it wasn't with me. I was just sitting there. There was a couple guys, it's a small bus and there's 10 of us on it. And credit to these guys. They haven't complained about stuff like that. And
you must have felt right at home riding the small bus.
I hate you. Right into the propeller. He walked right into the propeller. But it was nice. It was nice. And the next day I told him, it's like, hey, Gormley, it's like, just letting you know. I mean, it was really good to hear dad talk, in the midst of everything that we're doing. On the other hand, there are two guys who aren't players that I'm quite sure AJ will be talking about on our podcast, who have lots of theories on parenting, don't have kids. And it's funny because I told AJ, dude, the whole, parenting thing started because, like, when we first, when management first got pregnant with Grayson, we got all this great advice, so much great advice. We didn't tell anybody she was having the second guy, which is why we just showed up. And it's great when you get this parenting advice from 3,000 or 8,000 miles away. But once we moved back here, it's not a huge issue, but it's a thing. It's like, okay, so my oldest made it to 11. He's doing well in school. He's active. He's well-rounded. But go ahead and tell me where I'm wrong with everything I've ever done.
Yeah, that's like people that don't own guns giving gun control advice. It's like,
You and your false equivalency.
I know.
You're not a blonde on Fox News.
I wish.
But it was, and it came out of the whole. It started with the Adrian Peterson and how he was blackballed because the media made a big thing about it, and that's what you do. You got to discipline your kid. And I'm like, I don't hit our kids, but I'm not saying everybody's wrong because we all got beat. At one point, I'm just saying, at what point do you stop making a kid pick a switch and whip his testicles so hard he winds up in the hospital? There's and then it's like I asked for it because it's like then I had to hear their theories about if you don't do this or this and it's this and I'm like, all right, well, I got about 8 more days with this flu and I'm just gonna not talk about parenting with people who don't have kids.
All right,
so
I know
parenting advice the week is stay away from people who don't have kids in their parenting advice.
Any round earthers among you? Just curious.
I haven't asked, and it's one of those things. It's fun, the things that you're picking up, but no, I don't think we have any flat earthers with us.
Okay, I just just want to cover all the bases. So
you got a parenting tip of the week.
My parenting tip of the week is I'm gonna say tell your kids to clean their rooms.
Good. Yeah. Well, did you read that off the sheet? Did you?
I felt like the guy at the end of the Family Feud row who had to he has 2 strikes against him and there's only one answer on the board and he's got to come up with a really good answer or his family's gonna blow it and here I am.
Oh man!
So there's not a whole lot of flop sweat coming off of my armpits right now, but a little pitting. Over.
I have no idea what song I'm going to send you, but as soon as we hang up, I'll send you a masterpiece from Dan and I. Or you know what? You know Dan's resume. Maybe go to his website and dancraig.net. Maybe pick something off the album. Not the jazz guy, I don't think that's his last album. It's his album before. But I am looking forward to coming back. I am very much looking forward to, like I said, like AJ really wants to come in and do the podcast. I also think it would be very important, much like the last time he came in, to correct, my stories, much like, our buddy John that night. It's like, well, you have the right people in the right room, but that's not how it went down.
Yeah, but you were blackout drunk back then. What are you saying about your situation now? Are you just having flashbacks to your blackoutness and now you're,
CTE, baby. CTE.
All right, well.
You weren't there.
Well, this was a kind of a fun podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed it at home. I guess that's all we've got to say. And hopefully I can kind of stitch this together so you don't hear a lot of hissing and popping in my voice. And
Oh, I lied. No, I'll save it for next time. I did watch something on Netflix before I went that was phenomenal, but I'll tell you about it afterwards, and you can remind me for next week, or I'll send myself a note now.
Save it for the next podcast.
If I make it back.
Right. I mean, basically, what you're essentially saying is that regarding your Netflix pick of next week, don't forget.
Tell me where in the world will you go with the life I'm living? I don't know. I don't know. Flying high above. See my shadow on the ground. When you see it, around. Butterfly love, flutter by love. Tell me where in the world will you go with the life I'm living? I don't know. I know I'm flying high low to see my shadow on the ground. When you see it getting smaller, I'll be around. Butterfly love, butterfly love. Tell me where in the world will you go with the life I'm living? I don't